last time on Mishaco. Several have asked, so we're going to do a full review on the Kalashnikov copy of the AK-103. It comes in a case with a manual, and mine came with one Korean mag, although other people have received one of the KUSA polymer mags with metal reinforcements. There's also a coupon in the bag to get one when they come back in stock. In the past, we've had great luck out of other Kalashnikov USA products, including this KR-9, KP-9s, and even the KS-12. So, will the KR-103 continue the trend? From the butt to the muzzle brake, this is a lot like a Sega, be it a SGL 2194 or 3194, with just a few differences. For example, an extended safety. Yeah. Initial table talk and examination went quite well. However, proof is in how it performs at the range. In the end, is this worthy of a sling? Hi, Mish here, and as promised, now we're going to run this gun here through its paces, the Kalashnikov USA KR-103SF, purportedly 100% US made AK, specifically a clone of the Russian Izhmash, today Kalashnikov concern, AK-103, chambered for 7.62 by 39, fake standard AK mags, left side folding stock as you saw, 24mm threads, and this model is supposed to have a 16-inch cold hammer forged chrome lined barrel, forged trunnion, and forged bolt grip. So we already did a video kind of talking and comparing. This time, let's heat it up. Mr. Worf, fire. First rounds out of the KR-103. So, brought out 6 mags, 4 kind of random surplus mags that were just in a grab bag, quite literally, and 2 Arsenal Circle 10s. And first mag through it went without a hitch, as you saw. And I already see what people are talking about. The recoil is seemingly quite pleasant. Not sure if it's the gas port size, the muzzle brake, the spring, or a combination of the 2 or 3. That said, let's try a little bit more rapid fire for the second mag. Alright, KR-103.
Like that just fine.
Yep. And second mag went through just fine. Continue to notice quite light recoil, even with rapid fire. Not a whole lot of muzzle climb. With that, let's share with a couple of people, kind of get their take on it. Now, Jero with the KR-103.
Smoking. Clean.
Very clean.
Jero's more of an AR guy, but he said as far as AKs go, it was nice. And the other person there was my cousin, who is an AK guy. However, maybe he's been around me a little too long. He is big into imports. So before this, he didn't think a whole lot of Kalashnikov USA. And I'm not sure if he's quite converted over yet, but he did say it exceeded his initial expectations. These mags are fitting quite nicely, and we're noticing a quite pleasant trigger on this thing with a pretty nice throw. At this point, it's heating up pretty good though, so well, let's just keep on with this range review and then we'll kind of look at it in detail. So looking at it here, stock lockup is still tight, including the button. The dust cover has no play to speak of, just a maybe tiniest bit in the front, maybe. Safety locks in position well enough, but isn't overly rough. Magazines fit well. One thing I noticed that did loosen up a bit, the muzzle device got a little play to it. Before it was pretty solid. Doesn't really have much wiggle thanks to that long collar, but there's a little bit play as it worked itself in, to be expected. Gas tube, not really any play. Gas lever, still nice and stout. Mag well, pretty standard. Not much really going on externally. So we've fired a few steel mags through it. Now, it seemed like a good idea to try a polymer arsenal. They fit in easily enough. No problems getting them in and out. Flip it over. Like I said, this button, very tight. So, let's try an arsenal mag. KR-103 with an arsenal mag. First one of the day.
Yep.
Could be a mag thing. We'll check it out. And somewhat ironically, we have our first little failure or malfunction of the day. The question is it the firearm? Is it the ammo? We're mostly shooting Red Army Standard with some Wolf thrown in too. Or is it the magazine? Well, luckily, I brought two arsenal mags, so let's try the other one. KR-103 with another arsenal mag.
Clean.
No problems with the second mag. So, since the first mag still had some ammo left in it, let's put it back in and see if it has another failure, or, as I was jokingly saying to everyone, there's two ways to unload a mag. One way is a lot more fun than the other. So, yeah, let's give that first arsenal mag another go. Now let's try that mag that failed before, or presumably did.
Nope, all good.
And that time it ran till it was dry. I don't know how much use or not these mags have seen. Sometimes brand new polymer mags need a little bit of break-in. The follower sticks, I'm not 100% sure. Something to keep in mind because we're not really sure what happened there. But we know we need to keep shooting it to, try it again. So with that, let's move back and try another one of the surplus steel. I don't actually remember which one I grabbed next, just one of them. KR back with the steel surplus. That was good.
Yeah.
And still running fine with the steel mags, at least the gun. Me, on the other hand, you saw me pinch myself with the safety. Hey, it's raw, unedited footage here. And you get to see me make a boob out of myself from time to time, and that's one of them because of the flared AK-100 series style cover. No big deal. We're all human though, and we all do that. So, the gun is definitely hot at this point in the day. So, let's pause for a minute. I have a question. I'm wondering if this here bayonet will fit or not. And yes, the bayonet fits quite nicely. It's not overly tight or loose. It actually lines up really well with the ring on the muzzle of the device. I wasn't sure because this being a US made, but this is a Bulgarian bayonet, but it is proper AK-100 series. Just something worth pointing out. Another thing worth pointing out is in the buttstock here with the cleaning kit. Having a kit in here kind of helps keep this button forward. It's a little bit stiff and sticky. I mean, new polymer on new polymer, so not really amazed. See, when it's out, it kind of pops in a bit. I think it'll wear, and you can always push it out with the other side. But yeah, having the kit in here kind of helps solidify it. Plus, it's just kind of neat. Just one thing worth pointing out. Well, let's run one more steel mag through it, and then we'll take a look under the hood. Another steel out of the KR. Ha!
Clean.
Another successful mag. We're over 200 rounds by this point, probably getting close on 300 total, and so far the only malfunction was the one you witnessed a minute ago. So yeah, how's it holding up? Like I said, the button is nice and stiff still. The stock has basically no play in it at all. Folds over nicely, no play when it's folded. Take our mag out here. You can see it lines up quite tight up against the receiver. No play. Sorry, hard to do one-handed. Let's put you down for a second. Let's get a little force on it there. And to my mind, the rivets on the outside here seem perfectly fine. These are supposed to be flat, same way on the originals. Trigger guard rivets seem fine. And flipping it over to this side, a little bit on this rivet here, on the edge there, just a little bit of a burr. But in my opinion, nothing egregious or nothing that would not pass spec over in Russia in the factory. And over here we have the rounded lower and the upper here. It's only one slight in this lower magwell rivet, just kind of a little bit of a burr. But other than that, not really anything that you can point to. In the action, it was never gritty to begin with, but it is getting a little smoother, and it's definitely not hanging up on the trigger group even when you try to ease it forward. And really actually digging this trigger quite a bit. Now, like I said, the dust cover is fitting nice and tight, but let's take it off and look inside. YouTube's a little meh about disassembling on camera, so sorry, had to do it for you. I'm sure this is quite dirty. Piston head. And here's our internals. Well, what can we see inside? I'm gonna wipe some of the crud off, and we'll take a look. Really nothing to see with the top cover, and the recoil guide is normal. Again, this is definitely not feeling overgassed or undergassed. Actually, it's feeling quite pleasant, but that could be the very effective 74 brake. Here's the insides for what it's worth. Nothing alarming so far, I would say, inside. There is something we're going to talk about in the rear in a minute, though. And as far as our bolt group, here's our bolt. Notice the firing pin is still freely moving. Sorry, I didn't mean to shake you, but I wanted to show that it's not stuck or even a little bit. Nothing bad on the back of the lugs, as far as I can tell. One thing that a couple of commenters said, there's had a gas piston that loosened up after shooting. Mine was quite stiff. Now it's got some play in it, which actually does make me happy. Now it has about the same type of play as my Sega. Cleaned off the carbon. Not a whole lot stuck to it. And I do like that this is actually pinned in, not welded. That's just good for a lot of reasons. And inside here, it's fine. There's not a lot of pinging, just the tiniest bit maybe on the left side of the tail, and that might have been there from the beginning, but nothing bad, again, in my opinion. And here's that corresponding hammer. Really am kind of digging this trigger. And now looking at the inside from the other side. The bump rivet here is secure, no wiggle or play on it. Haven't noticed any wiggle on the rivets. Yeah. Now, back here as I was talking, something that was pointed out in the first video is that while this side is perfectly straight, there's a little bit of bowing on this side here when they press the rivet in. You know, there's not a lot of meat between the rivet and the edge of the trunnion because of the pivot pin, so it does bow out a bit there. But it doesn't affect anything as far as function or the stock. It's just a cosmetic thing where they might have overpressed it just a bit. Now, I'm not saying anything about that, but I will say there was accusations that the Sega SGL 2194s and 3194s also had overly pressed rear rivets. In that case, it didn't so much flare out here as it kind of dimpled the receiver around the rivet. If you look at some of the SGL 94 types, you'll see a little bit of an indentation around the rivet. The thing is, and this is just personal opinion, when you do this, when you put the top cover on, that's completely covered up. So it might be something they should kind of deal with a bit, but it's not seeming to affect anything, and the top cover fits fine, and again, it completely covers it anyway. I can't really say it bothers me that much. Maybe I'm wrong in that opinion, but it's just me. I feel like that's something we could have seen on a Sega or even an Arsenal. But we've been examining it long enough. Let's get back to the range.
What do you think?
Beautiful. I really do like it.
KR-103. One more mag for today. Alrighty.
Runs like a champ.
And of course, as we got towards the end, continued to share it around, and it seemed like my cousin was starting to come around to it a bit more. He's still uncertain if he's quite ready to make the jump into a US-made AK, but yeah, seemed like it exceeded expectations. Here's that SGL 3194, and here's the kind of dimpled in rivet on the top that people used to complain about on these. And pretty much all of them had it to one degree or another. And so we closed out the day with well over 300 rounds through this. I'm not exactly sure how many, I didn't count, but it was doing well, and we were starting to kind of lose daylight. Now this range trip basically shouldn't have happened. The whole day and the next day were supposed to be rain, rain, rain. Even looking at the hourly forecast, it was supposed to just rain all day. And I don't know if you could tell in the video, but the ground was not just muddy, but clay. Shoes were caked in it. Luckily, there was a little gap there in the afternoon where we could shoot, even though the forecast said it wasn't going to happen. We gambled going there. Logically, we should have canceled. It was raining this morning, cats and dogs, and we shouldn't have gone. But I really wanted to get the KR-103 out for me and for you. I was really, really curious how it would shoot. And weather played relatively nice. About halfway through our shooting thing, it did start to sprinkle, but it never really progressed past slight sprinkle. So we just kept on shooting until it started to get dark, and we started to get hot, tired, and hungry. So, initial run, 300 plus rounds, probably at least 350. I know it's not a great thing, but hey, at the cost of ammo today, it is what it is. And 350 is better than 0, right? With that, we only had that one failure, and it never cropped up again. So was it the mag? Was it the ammo? Was it the gun? I'm not sure. If anything, I think it could have just been one of those flukes that sometimes happens with firearms. Who knows? Something to keep an eye on, but it did not happen again. And the three of us that shot the gun were all quite impressed for what it was. It's still an AK, don't get me wrong. It's not revolutionary. The Segas never were either. But it is a nice quality AK. So, pros and cons, pluses and minuses to the KR-103SF. Let's kind of neg on it for a minute. Okay, we already talked about the overpressed upper rivet. I don't believe it'll cause an issue, but cosmetically it does understandably annoy some people. The finish also doesn't seem to be to everyone's liking. It's definitely more of a matte, kind of a powder coat style, not quite phosphate, not quite parkerization, but it has more of that coarse texture, like the KP up here, or KR, but not as shiny glossy as the Sega. There's also something a little bit off about this US-made muzzle device. I can't quite put my finger on it. It's close, but not quite original. I don't think it's a two-piece design like the original. And, I don't know, the extended safety, take it or leave it. I think I'd prefer just a standard Sega style. You know, what have you. And it has to be pointed out that getting this folding stock does bump up the price quite a bit. The fixed stock guns are $1,000, maybe $1,100. I haven't really checked recently. And the folders are as much as $15, although you can typically find them for $14, maybe even less on sale. So, you know, it's probably not worth it to a lot of people. And while it's neat to say this is made in the USA, keep in mind a lot of the parts will be subcontracted out, like the polymers and what have you. These are not made in the original Russian military factory, so we don't necessarily know how well these may hold up over time. It is a bit of an unknown quantity there, despite what they might claim. And finally, while some people's may come with the KUSA polymer steel reinforced mags, mine came with the Korean steel mag, which I didn't even actually bring out today because meh, I probably should have. But yeah, I would say cost and the fact that it is US made would be the big detractors for some people. Alright, now what about the positives? Well, first off, KUSA now acknowledges they have the blueprints, the drawings, the specs from Kalashnikov concern. Probably helps that it's been 8 years since anything would have happened, so statute of limitations. Anyway, moving on from that. So while we don't know exactly the longevity of the parts, they have every opportunity to make them with good quality. And even if things like the furniture starts to go Russian furniture should drop in with little to no fitting. On top of that, the KR-109 we've had for years, and it has held up very well. Remained quite nice and tight. Just no problems out of this guy, frankly. Pleasant gun. And this is pleasant too. Moving past everything else, I really like the triggers they're using now. The bolt throw is smooth. And again, I will say the recoil, how it shoots, climb, it feels properly gassed for standard steel-cased Russian type ammo. And even after a day of shooting in the heat, and actually we shot it pretty mercilessly a couple of times, getting it very hot. As J-Red pointed out, it was definitely smoking more than once. Nevertheless, parts didn't get loosey-goosey. The top cover is still tight. The safety, the gas tube, sometimes those kind of get loose. The muzzle brake got a little bit of play in it, but nothing bad, I would say. And the stock, maybe most importantly, did not get extra play in it in either folded or unfolded positions. So that's pretty good. And it accepted a total of 8 different mags, the 6 I brought and a couple my cousin brought. And they were just kind of random mags. He even had some little $5 Polish surplus mags that really kind of fit wonky in even an arsenal we brought out, and they fit in this just fine. So the magwell seems to hit that sweet spot between loose enough to fit mags, but not so loose that everything's flopping around. This mag's quite tight in here, as you see. As far as the price, you know, the thing is, when the SGL 3194s came out, people complained that they were $1,000 when you could get a fixed stock version for $600 or $700. Adding this folding mechanism has always added $300-400. And it is a niche thing, I get that. It's for people wanting an AK-103 type gun specifically. If you're not, get the fixed stock, and then you can have a standard rear trunnion and put whatever you want on it. Now, this is for a very specific purpose. In fact, even if you found a metal 5.5mm stock, it would fit on here. Now, this one wouldn't fit because it doesn't have the quite proper latch. A little different up here. But there are metal folders that will fit this just fine. So I don't think the price jump is uncalled for, especially considering these have the cold hammer forged and chrome line barrel. A lot of the fixed stock guns, the cheaper ones especially, were the button rifle barrel. Nothing wrong with that, but AK people, myself included, do like cold hammer forged, everything else, because it is original spec. And the fact we have a forged trunnion, and again, they claim this is a forged bolt group, which is actually interesting because the original Segas coming into the USA, while they had a forged bolt, the carrier was actually cast. In fact, Russia have been using cast carriers since the 70s. AKMs, AK-74s, AK-74s, and so on. Nothing wrong with a cast carrier if the casting's done properly. I'm not sure if this bolt carrier is cast or forged, but reading their literature, it seems to allude to the fact that it's forged. Just give me that information. Take it as you will. So no, I really don't think the price jump is all that uncalled for, considering what you do get. Also considering that SGL 2194s were selling for ungodly money used today. So to get a new gun that's essentially a clone of those, plus you do get the reinforcing plate over the pistol grip that those do not have, it seems fine, especially for someone wanting a shooter. And it really was a nice, pleasant shooter. So, the question, is it sling worthy? I rarely bother to put a sling on a gun, especially an AK, unless it's a keeper. Now, I know, slings can up this area. I honestly don't care. I think they look good with the sling on, and when you're out shooting, it's actually a handy tool to have. It's something to grab it by when it's hot or to hang it from. I just feel like it kind of completes the gun. But does this deserve the sling? This is just another Russian sling I had laying around. I had several of these from back in the Legion USA days. I've talked about all the positives and the negatives. That aside, this is a 7.62x39 AK. Do I really need it? I have the SGL 3194. I've got the KR-9. I've got the Sega 1294, the side-folding shotgun. This year alone, I've picked up the WBP Jack, and also got the FB Radom Beryl M762. Heck, even picked up a Ace Gen 1 in 7.62x39. There's no reason. This is a nice gun. It really is. But it doesn't do anything that the other guns don't. And it is US made, not an import. I picked up the KR because, for one thing, these were quite inexpensive back then, and I really like 9mm guns. And I was able to sell my PAC-9 and NAC-9 to kind of cover it. I can't think of anything I would sell to cover this. It's a nice gun, but it's not really worth selling anything over. And I kind of have my AK collection lean and mean, where I want it, if that makes sense. So there's no reason, as nice of a rifle as it is, to put a sling on it, to keep it. Nope. No logical reason at all. But I'm doing it anyway, because, look at this thing. They went to great extent to copy the Kalashnikov concern design. Even small things like the notch in the stock, the type of button is the same. Even the type of little screws on the edge are the same. And in some ways they're better than even the originals. I just can't say no, because again, I didn't get the SGL 2194. If I had a 2194, then I would not. Again, this has no stamp here, and this does. It's a small detail, but it looks good, even to me. And I do like how tight everything has stayed on this after we shot it. With the way things are going, either with the manufacturing end of things or political, it just seems like one of those things to pick up while we can. And I don't believe they'll ever produce these cheaper than where they're at right now. Also, I want to reward an American company. I want to give them business. Again, the KR-109 has been a great gun for me. And I like their tactic. I like that they're doing replicas of the Russian guns. I'm hoping this will, if sales continue to stay quite high, which they seem to have been doing, they'll try other guns. The 5.45 maybe, or their 5.56 or AK-101, or moving into like the 102, 105 guns. I would love it if they would get into the AK-107/108 guns, the balancing bolt. That's probably a pipe dream, but hey, we can dream, right? Who would have thought 10 years ago a U.S. manufacturer would get this close to an original Russian? And the few areas that it's not quite there, frankly, I can live with. Nothing's perfect. Even the Segas were not perfect. They, had compromises too. So, yeah. And they seem to be a stand-up company for what it is. They, took them a while to get there. They had a few changeovers and whatnot, but they were persistent and seem to be delivering a quality product today. Maybe just work on their fixture for pressing this rear rivet. But again, with the cover on, it's hidden, and it just doesn't seem to be a big deal. On this one, it sits right up here, nice flush with it, just a little gap like on the original. No, it was just too nice of a shooter. Smooth, as JR said, clean. It shot very well. It wasn't overly punchy, overly flippy. It wasn't mag sensitive. I will keep an eye to see if there's any more failures like we saw, but I'm hoping it was just kind of a fluke early on, early rounds. Or maybe it just didn't like the one Arsenal mag. As nice as these Circle 10 mags are, they are plastic, and if one's brand new, it's very possible that they have a sticky follower or a burr somewhere that could cause something. But we will see. I'm actually very happy we're able to get out and go shooting, because almost we're not. That said, we are delivering you these 2 videos, 2-parter, now, because I've been putting out videos for months on end. It was a very hot July. We're coming into August. It's time for a short break. Now, J-Ro and I are working on a couple of kind of involved videos. There's one anniversary video that's coming out that should be a lot of fun. You'll see what it is soon. We also shot some other guns today, and we have more on the way we want to play with. So fresh content is coming, but it's hot, we're tired. Need a couple of weeks to work on videos and recharge our batteries, literally and metaphorically. Like, I need fresh batteries for the camera, because I've been using these hardcore for a couple of years, and they're starting to not always hold the charge as much as they could. So wanted to kind of go out on a high note, I hope, with a gun that is not new, but a gun that people have been curious about, and to give an unbiased review. As I've said in the first video, this is a purchase. This is not a gimme or a T&E gun. This one's got a sling on it. And we'll definitely bring it out again. But we'll be back a couple of weeks. And as always, we'll post a couple of videos in the interim, from the archives. There's always a video or 2 from the archives to kind of tide you over. But I appreciate all the support this year, and again, if you'd like to help out, you can go over and check out the link to the Patreon page. We'll have another Q&A very soon, probably for Labor Day. But if that's not practical for you, perfectly understand. Just liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. That's great too. With that, hope you enjoyed this 2-parter on the Kalashnikov USA, KUSA, KR-103SF. And we will catch you very soon next time.